Hello, I'm Karl Richter, and this video is actually a practice session for me for a presentation I'm giving for the eLearning Guild here in January of 2019. The title of my talk is Sweet eLearning Features that you can do using Google Suite. So like I said, my name is Karl. I jokingly call myself the head blender at eLearning Blends, not just because I've started the company 15 years ago, but also because we're in the business of being memorable. And I hope that somewhere you're like, oh, hey, that's Karl. He named himself after a kitchen appliance as he does blended learning. But even more than that, we're not just in the business of making things memorable. We're in the process of adding new information to what's already in people's heads. So whether you work for me, whether you're one of my clients or not, I think we all are kind of head blenders. So what I'm going to talk about today is something called Google Suites. You've already heard one blender joke. You're going to see a whole bunch of candy and donuts and things like that today because I really think there are just some really sweet opportunities out there. It is a fantastic time to be alive, if you ask me. We have a wonderful set of tools, free resources. You're learning about those all day today. One of those that we're going to talk about is Google Suite. So if you have a Gmail account, you may have seen that there is a little icon here that you can click and open, and you see all these different apps, all these different programs that are part of your suite. You may be looking and say, hey, Karl, you have Gmail, but it has your company name there. How did you do that? I actually have an email address at my domain name, elearningblends.com. You can go in and actually, it's $5 a month per user. But I have all of these Google Suites, all of these Google apps here installed on my domain. So if you're someone who likes Gmail but also has a different account, do look into Google Domain. That's the only time I'm going to talk about Google Domain here. But whether you're using Google Domain or whether you are just part of a free Gmail account, you're going to have not only all these things. Today we're going to talk a little bit about YouTube, we're going to talk a little bit about Drive, we're going to talk about the online version of Microsoft Office called Docs, the online version of Excel that's called Sheets, and the online version of PowerPoint that is called Slides. I'm going to show you a little bit about sites, and then when you click more, you're actually going to see some things here. Google Forms is really cool, and there's even one that I'm saving for later as a special surprise. So today what I wanted to do was really just to say, hey, how am I going to use this, Karl? What are these free tools? Are you telling me about them just because they're free, or are you telling me about them because they will solve a problem that I'm having? So today you are going to meet 3 different designers. Each one of those has a different issue that they're trying to face, and surprise, surprise, none of them have a budget for it. So we're going to say which free tools will help them get the job done. So our first designer here says she's been given the approval to move some of the new hire training online, but they don't have an LMS. What should she do? Can she even make a quiz? So we're going to start off with our suite feature number 1. It's actually a really cool, really free, which I love, thing called Google Forms, and they support different quizzes. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to stop talking for a minute here. I'm going to have a link pop up in a minute here, and it is going to show you an example of this that you can go through. So rather than me coming and telling you all about Google Forms, this isn't truly graded. But when you take it, you'll get an opportunity to go through and to actually view the responses and see how well you did. So we'll go back and review it, but for the next 3 minutes, I'm going to let you go and experience that. And if you are watching this as a YouTube video, then you can actually go through and click the link on screen here and see the quiz example that I'm showing. So you can go through, you can enter in your name, click next, you have a little pretest here. So you may be wondering, so how did I actually do this? I made the little animated GIF that you see on screen here that's showing you how to do things like add questions. Really, you go into your Google Drive, you go to Google Forms. Once you have a form, you can go in, you can work with the questions. It's a very neat, it's a very slick interface. You've got a lot of different options for different quizzes that you can do. You can choose whether they're required or not. You can go through and duplicate them. You can add more questions. There's a lot of options for what you can do. So when you're finished, you can actually go through and view the different responses. You can scroll through, you can see this really cool summary, you can see the different questions. Hopefully you saw that as you were going through and participating. You can also view it on a spreadsheet so that you could go through and see in a downloadable spreadsheet that you can use for tracking. So a little bit of bonus sweetness. This is one of my favorite tips, particularly if you're working in an organization without an LMS. So maybe for some weird reason you don't have an LMS, but you do have a tool like Storyline or Captivate or even Camtasia. What you can do is you can have a web object that would actually embed a Google form on the last slide. So you would go through your Storyline presentation, you take the quiz. On the fail layer, it says take it again. On the past layer, you can actually embed this little web object, and it would be something that looks like this. So for an example, you can just put in your name and your email, and then that way, nobody can share the link. You actually have to go through and take the quiz and get it complete, get it correct, so that you can go through and see it. So let me go through and actually show you what the Google form looks like. You saw the live form that you can click and go through. This is what it looks like for me. This is what it looks like for me. So this section here, this button here rather, allows you to have different sections. So the first thing that I did is I had someone just type in their name. It's not a very scary quiz. I didn't want anybody to go in and go, oh my gosh, how many questions is this guy giving us? I don't really want to do this. Instead, I put it down into different chunks. And I gave you this nice little pre-test. I tried to show a variety of different options. You can have people type in other answers. You can choose all that apply. And then you'll see here, after the next section, you can actually choose what section you're going to go to. So then I send them to branching. Now I like to have a little bit of fun, so I put some movie examples in there. Hopefully that was a pleasant surprise for you. Michael Scott, if you like The Office, you can pick that. Miranda Priestley from The Devil Wears Prada, or everyone's favorite, Bill Lumbergh. So I made different sections for each of those. Since this is a Google product, surprise, surprise, it integrates well with YouTube. You can click a YouTube button here. It'll let you search. You can paste in a YouTube URL if you'd like. I think it is a fantastic multimedia thing that you can do so quickly and so easily. It didn't take me any time at all to put this together. So the way I did that is actually here in the Who is Your Manager, so that when we select it here, I can say, okay, this is going to go to The Office, this is going to go to The Devil Wears Prada, and this is going to go to Office Space. Then after that, I just had an open-ended question that says, how could you use this? So name one way that you could use Google Forms. And I'm hoping that we had some good ideas. And you can actually go through and you can view the responses here so that we can see it by question. We can look up an individual person that has been taking it. Or you can go here and actually view it in a live spreadsheet. So at this point, I will scroll over and I will take a look to see what some of those answers were. Read a couple of those. I've actually used this before in a module, just as sort of a discussion. It was a question about customer service. And it was like, name one time that good customer service surprised you. And that people would do that at the start of this module, and then they could actually see each other's answers so that it wasn't just me creating the content, but it was actually the different people taking the module that were able to go through and do it. So it's a pretty neat tool. So my next section, our next designer says, hey, we have a lot of PowerPoint presentations. Shocking, I know. Our sales reps need to be able to access these when they're in the field. Product information changes, so they need to be able to look up, ask questions, and look up key information. This is probably a problem that a lot of people face. A lot of folks that I've worked with do some sort of a PowerPoint that gets published into a SCORM and it gets put up there. And I'm not saying that that's a terrible way to do it, but you can also do it using Google Slides. This presentation is actually made with Google Slides, so everything that you're seeing here, this is our online version of PowerPoint. There's all the kinds of things that you can view and share and insert, and it really is a neat tool. So hopefully some of you have used Google Slides. One thing that I really like about it, it's mobile friendly. That it's very easy. All of your slides can be shared, can be viewed. For that designer who had issues with reps that were out in the field with content that changes a lot, it's very easy. You can share access with the subject matter experts that know the amperage of this particular product and it need to update it and change it as the new version comes out. That kind of information, learning team doesn't necessarily have to be involved. You'll see that there's collaborative editing so that anyone can go in and update the slides, and that those slides then could be used as a PowerPoint. So I'm just explaining the basics about Google Slides, the online alternative to PowerPoint. I'm going to stop talking again here and to find out what you know already. If you've used Google Slides, please share one feature that you like in our chat window. One of the things that I really like, this didn't make my top 5. I'm going to share those with you in a minute here, but the honorable mention, I should have mentioned this with forms. They have these templates set up for you to get started. And when I say template, I don't just mean the colors and the themes and the slide layouts. I mean, like, if you're trying to do a status report, use this one. If you're trying to do a case study, you can use this one. Consulting proposal, and so on. So this is one that I think is really neat. You can actually, I made this little GIF to show you a little bit more about some of the templates that are in there, and in particular this one. Chip and Dan Heath have this wonderful book called Made to Stick. It's wonderful. This one really says, okay, this is your approach. These are things that are going to help it. Like I said, we're in the business of being memorable. This is a way for them to actually go through and to say, give you little tips for making good presentations and making that live on and actually stick in their head. So go ahead and check that out. Maybe that's something that you've seen. One of my favorite features is this Q&A. We have an audience Q&A feature. I'm going to actually let you, I can click on this and see the Q&A session. You'll see at the bottom of my screen here, you'll actually see it twice. I took a screenshot of this because as a presenter, I have different presentation tools. I have this little pointer that I'm using to make these awesome red slides. But I also have this Q&A button that when I click that, it actually allows us to go through and to have a Q&A with our audience. So if you were to click that link, you can actually go ahead and ask a different question. You can ask as yourself. You can go in and vote for other questions so you don't have to type it in. And you'll see this is what I see as a presenter, and we'll do this once I've finished my top 5, where I can go through and I can actually answer some of your questions. I don't have time to answer all of them. I will be in the chat lounge afterward, but you'll see here that I can control it so that it says anyone, or since I have Google domain, I can actually just restrict it to people in my company. So number 5 was the presenter tools and the audience Q&A. I think that's really great. That's something that we could use for a webinar, similar to what we're doing here. The other thing is that you can edit on a mobile app. So I think of my slides, I think of my presentations. Maybe I have a little trouble with work-life balance, but I find myself saying, oh, you know what, I want to add in something here. You can simply pull out your phone. You can click insert in comments, texts, images, all the same kinds of things. It's a little bit limited, but it can do nearly everything that you can do, all of the big things that you would want to do. I think it's great that it is not only mobile friendly to view, but it's mobile friendly to edit and update. Because who goes anywhere without their phones these days? It's always there. Feature number 3 is to publish and share. And let me explain the difference between these two. So you can actually go through, and if you're a web admin, you know that everyone has, rather than taking a presentation and a series of slides and FTPing it onto your company somewhere and having upload access to work with the web, there's a whole separate set of skills that you would need for this. Instead, you could actually go through and publish it to the web. This is an example of a Google Slides document that I made for a nationwide chain of dentists. This was sort of a checklist for different things that people were having trouble with reimbursing. So we actually put this and we published the page, and then we made it available on their intranet. It's available on their phones. It's available on the tablets they use in the office. Versus shared editing, where you can actually go through and really have multiple authors that we can collaborate, that we can work with. So another one of my favorite features is the ability to comment. So when I build a custom e-learning module, even if it's using something like Storyline, we like to put together a storyboard and share it with our clients. This was one on patient documentation. And one of my designers went through and she actually left comments for the different clients, and that we can go through and say, hey, you know, we're still having a little trouble with the S and the P of this SOAP model. You know, who's going to handle the post-test? So this was a really great, really efficient way for us to work with our subject matter experts, with the other stakeholders in the project. Everything's documented, and there's a nice little chain. You can go through and actually resolve whether these comments have been addressed or not. PowerPoint does something very similar. It's just a tool that I've found really effective. I am all about working smart, not working hard, and these comments have been a wonderful way for me to do that. Now my last thing is it's free. Just like Andy Dufresne from the Shawshank Redemption, this is a completely free program that you can use, and it is surprisingly powerful.